Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Richard.
Hello.
Hi, I'm trying to do this off my iPad today, so hoping it works.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
At least
okay,
good
good.
anyway.
Okay. Are you guys flying this afternoon or no?
She's at the beach. I'm here. She's going to join in later.
Okay.
And I'm here at the airport.
Okay, okay.
So we are flying this afternoon, but not until 8 o'clock tonight. So but we're not
Okay.
together.
Okay. Looks like we got a few wanting to come in. I'm going to go ahead and just let everyone in.
Sounds good.
Hi.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Alicia. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Okay,
Hi, Rick.
I'll do it.
Oh. Hi, Rick. How you doing?
I want you to go with me to go test drive secrets.
I assume you still have me, Alicia?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, there you are. I had lost you there for a second.
Okay, well, let me know if that happens. I do live out in the middle of nowhere, so hopefully I maintain internet. Hi, Yesenia.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. And then I don't know if once I share my screen, if I'm able to allow people in. So I don't know if your screen will show that, if you're able to admit them.
Mine won't, because you're the host.
The host.
But,
Okay.
let me
Okay.
know.
Well, I'll
if
try.
you-
Hopefully no one's coming in too late. So.
Okay.
All right.
I'll
Let's
keep.
see.
I don't know if I'll keep an eye out too. I'm not sure if I can see people come in, but if I do, I will let them in.
Okay. Perfect. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my content. All right, and throughout this, if anyone has any questions, please just speak up, raise your hand. If I need to move slower, go ahead and just say holler. Let's see. So today we're going to be talking about the FAR aim and the regulations. So every year, the FAA comes out with a book of regulations that is updated, and every year it seems to be getting bigger and bigger. So today we're going to be talking about Part 91. So it's broken down into many different parts. Part 61 is generally how pilots get their license. It tells you all the hour requirements to get your license. It's how us CFIs teach you and all of our ways to, essentially help you get your license. Part 91, think about it, is all the rules and ways you can break to lose your license. So today we're going to be brushing up on Part 91.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so that's the way I think of it. Is 61, you get your license. 91 is all the ways you can get it taken away. So we're going to start with 91.3, so responsibility and authority of pilot in command. So the pilot in command of an aircraft is directly responsible for and is the final authority as to the operation of that aircraft. So if there is an in-flight emergency, you as pilot in command can deviate from any ATC, So if you see yourself on a vector from ATC, let's just say, they say turn heading 230, but you have a tower in front of you, you as pilot in command can divert away from that. That's essentially what 91.3 is stating. Richard, do you have any other scenarios to where a pilot might change or divert from an ATC clearance?
No, I think you covered it. And if you have an emergency, obviously you can do
Yes.
what and
Yes.
once you declare the emergency, you can do whatever you want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you guys are taking notes, it's good just to write, 91.3. And if I'm going through this too fast, you'll have the ability now to go through the FAR AIM and take a deeper look into some of this stuff. And I forgot to mention the FAR AIM can be purchased in a book form. It just has to be purchased every year because it does update every year. I did purchase the app and it automatically updates. I'm not sure the price of the app. I'm sure it's under $10. And you're able to bookmark it all on there. So I think the app is great. Okay, the next one is 91.9, Civil Aircraft Flight Manual Markings, Placard, and Requirements. So if you are my student or you're not, I will tell you is the flight manual in the aircraft, or some of you might have a POH, Pilot's Operating Handbook. One of those has to be in the aircraft. That's what this regulation is stating. And it has to be within reach of the pilot. So it can't be tucked underneath the back seat to where you can't reach it. It has to be within arm's reach of the pilot in command. Within that manual, it does state that there are required placards. So you'll notice that throughout the aircraft, there is little markings on there stating, it's no smoking or let's day VFR only. If any part of that is scratched off and not legible, the aircraft is considered not airworthy. So because in the manual, it states that that has to be legible in the aircraft. That's essentially what 91.9 is stating. And Richard, if you have anything to add within these regulations, jump in, please.
Sounds good.
All right. Does anyone have any questions about that one? All right, so we're gonna move along. All right, this is a fun one. So 91.15 actually states that you can drop objects from an aircraft, depending on the safety anyways. So it says no pilot in command of a civil aircraft may allow any object to be dropped from an aircraft in flight that creates a hazard to persons or property. However, this section does not prohibit the dropping of any object if reasonable precautions are taken to avoid injury or damage to persons or property. So I actually had a flight instructor tell me that we could drop flower bombs from our aircraft. I don't know why I would want to, but it was just his way of stating that we could without, injury or damage to persons or property.
Back in the old days, they used to have flower bomb contests, in case you didn't know about that.
Yeah, so that's why.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why he said flower bomb. People would fly over a runway and try to see who'd come closest to a particular spot on the airport. So that used to be a contest.
Okay, I'm just gonna make sure no one's trying to come in. So give me just a second. There we go. All right, we'll go back to the PowerPoint. All right, so the next one is 91.17, alcohol or drugs. So no person may act or attempt to act as crew member of a civil aircraft within 8 hours of consumption of any alcohol beverage. While under the influence of alcohol and while using any drug that affects the person's, what does that say? Faculties in a way, yes, contrary of safety. So that includes things like cold medicine, Benadryl, all that. So while having an alcohol concentration of 0.04 or greater in a blood or breath specimen, alcohol concentration means grams of alcohol per, what does it say, deciliter of blood or grams of alcohol per 210 liters of breath. So essentially just don't have any alcohol in your system. If it's affecting you, don't fly. That's going to be different, obviously, for everyone, but play it safe. These are the bare minimum. let's see. Also, so I was a flight attendant and we were never allowed to have people, if they appeared to be drunk, board our aircraft. And I didn't know, I didn't know where this regulation came from. They don't tell us, they just say, hey, if you notice, don't let them on. But right here in 9117 Bravo, it says, except in an emergency, no pilot of a civil aircraft may allow a person who appears to be intoxicated or who demonstrates by manner or physical indications that the individual is under the influence of drugs, except a medical patient under proper care, to be carried in that aircraft. So, and at any moment when I did work in the airlines, you can be, you could be drug tested right off of a trip. So they don't allow you off the aircraft. They come escort you off the aircraft to a restroom, and you have to right then and there, give your sample. Richard, can they do that like during a ramp check if someone maybe turns someone in?
Only a law enforcement personnel can request blood alcohol from you as a pilot.
Okay.
So any law enforcement, Joe Blow can't.
Okay. Sounds good.
Under Part 91, Part 135, Part 121, totally different.
Okay. All right. So 91-103 is all the pre-flight action that is required by the pilot. So here it says, each pilot in command shall, before beginning a flight, become familiar with all available information concerning that flight. This information must include, and I actually have an acronym for this one. It's NW craft. And essentially, without going into great lengths of reading this all, this right here, 91-103, it wants you to check the NOTAMs for departure and arrival airports, the weather during departure, en route, and arrival airports, known ATC delays. So this known ATC delays, let's just say you're flying into Seattle, into the Bravo. If they have a backup of arrivals, they may be having, let's just say airliners circle, they just don't have enough space. Let's just say there's a 30-minute backup. Know about that because you have to plan for fuel. You have to know the runway lengths of your intended airport and takeoff. That way you can make sure you can properly get into them. Alternates available, so plan for an alternate. Always plan for the worst and hope for the best. Fuel requirements, so your VFR fuel requirements, your 30 minutes past your intended arrival or 45 at night. And then takeoff and landing distances that you get from your flight manual or your POH. That acronym is NW craft. Another way of getting all this information is calling a weather briefer. If you Google a weather briefing form, they have a nice layout of essentially all this information that a weather briefer will give you. Another thing is if you get into an aviation accident, like 91-103 states, it is the pilot's responsibility to obtain all of this information. Now, when you use ForeFlight, in the event of an accident, there's no way of saying whether the pilot did the proper briefing, right? If you call a weather briefer, it is documented under the tail number that you called and got this information. So I love calling a weather briefer. You can get what is called a standard weather briefing, abbreviated, or an Outlook. And essentially, it gives you all the information needed under 91-103. Other than your takeoff and landing distances, obviously that's for your specific aircraft. And they will, if you ask, you can also get the nearest flight service station frequency added in there as well. So always plan for the worst. That weather briefing is, it's really good. It covers, I would say, 80% of the things in 91-103. Does anyone have any questions about that one?
Nope.
No? Okay. All right, so 91-105 flight crew members at stations. So if you notice during, when you take off in an airliner, each flight attendant and pilot is at their stations during takeoff and landing and while en route. Each required flight crew member, must be at their station. Be at the crew member station unless the absence is necessary to perform duties in connection with the operation of the aircraft or in connection with a physiological need. So in the event of emergency, right? They must keep the safety belt fastened while in the crew member's station. That is during takeoff and landing. So when you are also flying, your aircraft, that's why, you're supposed to brief your passengers to keep your seatbelt on during takeoff and landing, seatbelt and shoulder harness if equipped. So some of the older aircraft do not have shoulder harnesses, and and that is fine. So on this second part, this also talks about children. So under 91-105 Bravo, and then the first I over here, it says the child must be held by an adult who is occupying an approved seat or berth, provided that the person being held has not reached his or her second birthday and does not occupy or use any restraining device. So that's why you can have a lap child up to 2 years old. Let's see. That's about it. Other than use of the floor of the aircraft as a seat, provided that the person is on board for that purpose of engaging in a sport parachute. So you essentially can't, plop someone in the baggage area unless, they are engaging in sport parachuting. So everyone needs a seat with a seat belt. Let's see. And then number 3 states that if you don't know, if you do have a child who needs a car seat, it does have to be approved by the FAA, and the symbol on there will be an airplane symbol on the actual car seat. All right, so 91-111, operating near other aircraft. So no person may operate an aircraft so close to another aircraft as to create a collision hazard. No person may operate an aircraft in formation flight except by arrangement with the pilot in command of each aircraft in that formation. No person may operate an aircraft carrying passengers for hire in a formation flight. Sounds good enough to me. I think formation flying should definitely be coordinated.
I wanted to add that you can do that in flight also. It doesn't have to be on the ground. The idea is you can call each other on a common frequency, talk about it, and then do it. So it does not have to be prearranged if the situation permits.
Yes, definitely. All right, so 91-113 is the right-of-way rules. This one I see too commonly misunderstood. Scares me. Anyways, so the right-of-way. So who has the right-of-way? The aircraft, let's see. Okay, so the aircraft in distress. An aircraft in distress has the right-of-way over all other air traffic. So when an aircraft, so then we'll go to part Delta, converging. When an aircraft of the same category are converging at approximately the same altitude, except head-on or nearly so, the aircraft to the other's right has the right-of-way if the aircraft are in different categories. So a balloon has the right-of-way over any other category of aircraft. Of course, they do not have an engine. They cannot move as quickly as we can. A glider has the right-of-way over an airship, powered parachute, weight shift control aircraft, airplane, or rotorcraft. Number 3, an airship has the right-of-way over a powered parachute, weight shift control aircraft, airplane, or rotorcraft. Aircraft, and then I went down here, let's see. And then it says, however, an aircraft towing or refueling other aircraft has the right-of-way over all other engine-driven aircraft. If you are approaching head-on, when aircraft are approaching each other head-on or nearly so, each pilot of each aircraft shall alter course to the right. So each pilot moves to the right. If you are overtaking, so someone is behind you, or you are the aircraft behind another one, each aircraft that is being overtaken has the right-of-way, and each pilot of an overtaking aircraft shall alter course to the right and pass well clear. I think I have another page for this. Yes, there we go. So that was Foxtrot overtaking. Upon landing, so golf, aircraft while in final approach to land or while landing have the right-of-way over other aircraft in flight or operating on the surface, except that they shall not take advantage of this rule to force an aircraft off the runway surface, which has already landed and attempting to make way for an aircraft on final approach. When two or more aircraft are approaching an airport for purpose of landing, the aircraft at the lower altitude has the right of way. But it shall not take advantage of this rule to cut in front of another which is on final approach to land or overtake the aircraft. Does anyone have any questions about that one?
Yeah, and the overtaking one for landing, just think of two people approaching at the same time. One is lower than the other, but the lower one is, let's say, a mile behind. So he speeds up to overtake the one on top so he can cut him off. Even though he's lower, you have to think of it, he's way behind, a mile behind the other one. So therefore, he should really give the right of way.
Yes, definitely. All right. Aircraft speed, so 91-117. Unless otherwise authorized by the administrator, no person may operate an aircraft below 10,000 feet MSL at an indicated airspeed of more than 250 knots. So below 10,000, no more than 250. Unless otherwise authorized or required by ATC, no person may operate an aircraft at or below 2,500 feet above the surface within 4 nautical miles of the primary airport of a Class Charlie or Delta airspace area at an indicated airspeed of more than 200 knots. This paragraph does not apply to any operations with a Class Bravo airspace area. Such operations shall comply with paragraph alpha of this section. No person may operate an aircraft in the airspace underlying a Class Bravo airspace area designated for an airport or in a VFR corridor designated through such a Class Bravo airspace area at an indicated airspeed of more than 200 knots. If the minimum safe airspeed for any particular operation is greater than the maximum speed prescribed in this section, the aircraft may be operated at that minimum speed. So as you get in larger aircraft, their minimal speed is much higher than our Cessnas or Cherokees or, some of these single engine aircraft. So at that point, they have been given authority to fly their minimum safe speed. Then we have 91-119, minimum safe altitude. So this is the, this is the hemispherical rule. So except when necessary for takeoff or landing, no person may operate an aircraft below the following altitudes. So alpha anywhere, an altitude allowing if a power unit fails an emergency landing without undue hazard to persons or property on the surface. Bravo over congested areas. So if you look at your sectional, the congested areas are the yellow, generally over cities. So over any congested area of a city, town, or settlement, or over any open air assembly of persons, an altitude of 1,000 feet above the highest obstacle within a horizontal radius of 2,000 feet of the aircraft. Charlie, over other than a congested area, an altitude of 500 feet above the surface, except over open water or sparsely populated areas. In those cases, the aircraft may not be operated closer than 500 feet to any person, vessel, vehicle, or structure. Right, 91-125 is ATC light gun signals. Essentially, in the event of a communication failure, whether you're in or not a communication failure, well, comm, yeah, let's just say your radio went out and you needed to come in to land. These are, really important to know. How would you know if you were cleared to land? Well, right here it says steady green, you're cleared to land. If you're on the surface, you are cleared for takeoff. I have a little Jeppesen knee board that I use in the event, I need to freshen up on some of these in the event I do have a radio failure. But flashing green, you're cleared for takeoff or cleared to taxi. And then if you're up in the air, return for landing, to be followed by steady green at proper time, because steady green means clear to land. Steady red means stop on the ground. Steady red in the air, give way to other aircraft to continue circling. Flashing red, taxi clear of runway in use. And then if you're up in the airport, unsafe, do not land. Flashing white, return to starting point on airport. And then if you're up in the air, doesn't mean anything. Alternating red and green, exercise extreme caution, both on the ground and in the air. (91) 126, operating on or in the vicinity of an airport and class Gulf airspace. So unless otherwise authorized or required, each person operating an aircraft on or in the vicinity of an airport and class Gulf airspace area must comply with the requirements of this section. So direction of turns. When operating or when approaching to land at an airport with an operating control tower in class Gulf airspace, each pilot of an airplane must make all turns of that airplane to the left unless the airport displays approved light signals or visual markings indicating that turns should be made to the right, in which case the pilot must make all turns to the right. And each pilot of a helicopter or powered parachute must avoid the following fixed wing aircraft. So if you don't know, if helicopter operations, generally their traffic pattern is the opposite of fixed wing. Is that correct, Richard?
Usually, yes.
Okay.
They can join the fixed wing pattern as long as they avoid the fixed wing aircraft.
Okay. So, yes. So generally, like it says, all traffic patterns should be to the left unless otherwise stated to the right. That's why we always check the traffic pattern altitude and the direction, hopefully before we enter the pattern. 91 127. So now we're talking about class Echo airspace. Let's see. Yeah. So under this section in class Echo airspace, area must comply with the requirements in 91 126, which is the last one that we talked about. Each pilot of an aircraft must comply with any traffic pattern established for the airport in part 93 of this chapter. Communications with control towers, unless otherwise authorized by required by ATC, no person may operate an aircraft to, from, through, or on an airport having an operational control tower unless two-way radio communication are maintained between that aircraft and the control tower. Communications must be established prior to 4 nautical miles from the airport and up to including 2,000 feet AGL. However, if the aircraft radio fails in flight, the pilot in command may operate that aircraft and land if weather conditions are at or above basic VFR weather minimums, visual contact with the tower is maintained, and clearance to land is received. If the aircraft radio fails while in flight under IFR, the pilot must comply with 91 185. All right, 91 157, special VFR weather minimums. Let's see. So if you joined Richard's airspace video, it was one of our first Zooms. He went over airspace and some special VFR. So here in 91 157 alpha, except as provided in Appendix D, Section 3 of this part, special VFR operations may be conducted under the weather minimums and requirements of this section. Instead of those contained in 91 155, below 10,000 feet MSL within the airspace contained by the upward extension of lateral boundaries of the controlled airspace designated to the surface for an airport. So special VFR operations may be conducted with an ATC clearance. You have to remain clear of clouds, except for helicopters when flight visibility is at least 1 statute mile, and except for helicopters between sunrise and sunset, unless the person being granted the ATC clearance meets the applicable requirements for instrument flight under Part 61, so unless you're instrument rated, and then the aircraft is equipped as required in Part 91 205 Delta. How do you obtain how do you get a special VFR clearance? Well, if you're at a towered airport, you contact Tower. If you are at an untowered airport, you can call a flight service station and you request a special VFR clearance, and they can contact the controlling agency to get you that clearance. To find that flight service station frequency, go ahead and you can find it on ForeFlight, the sectional chart, or like I said, you can contact that 1-800 weather briefing, and they can give that to you while you get your weather briefing. Richard, can you think of times where special VFR, it's not used for, for you to go scud run, but can you think of,
people think special VFR is something that's bad, and it's like you just said, it's used for scud running, and that's not the idea. How many times do you go to an airport? Let's take Auburn, or let's take McClellan, for example, because McClellan is a Class E surface area, and you would need a special VFR if the weather is below basic VFR. For example, you go to McClellan, you show at the airport, or even SAC Exec, even Mather, half the airport is covered with a broken layer of clouds, and the other half is clear as a bell, and visibility is 20 miles. Well, you know, you can go in one direction and have no clouds, great visibility, but because the other half of the airport is got a ceiling below 1,000 feet, you're required to get a special VFR, you know, to go IFR or a special. So in a case like that, it's very simple to get one. You take off, you still go towards where there are no clouds and beautiful and go fly, but you just get a special VFR, and there's nothing unsafe about that.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about special VFR? No? Okay.
The one comment that I might want to see if Richard can just, airspace wise, kind of not special VFR, but Richard, or Alicia, either one of you, Class Golf airspace, obviously why you jump to Class Echo, where you're, you know, we've got controlled airspace. An uncontrolled airspace situation, when the ceiling is, you know, broken, like that, obviously it's uncontrolled. Can you explain to everybody the difference with that, and it being how you can get out of that, even if it's gone to IFR and your VFR? Richard?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Just remember, let me go back, for example.
It's just Gulf airspace. What's required? Yeah.
Let's say Rancho Marietta, okay? Even Auburn. Those two airports are Class Gulf, and the visibility is a mile clear clouds. That's all you need. So as long as, you know, that's where, for example, the scud running can come in, where let's say, for example, it's foggy or it's hazy, you can hardly see in front of you, but you're not in the clouds. The visibility is very, very low. As long as you have a mile clear clouds, it's legal for you to do, but not the smart thing to do.
Well,
now,
you know, I had a situation where I didn't like it, but it made sense. You know, it was 1 mile clear of clouds because there was a fire, and I knew right over that hill that it was blue skies, you know, so that would be a situation where you'd want to use that.
Yeah, exactly. For using a 1 mile clear cloud, that would be correct. But again, you know, each situation is different. And like you said, you know, for example, sometimes over at McClellan, it's McClellan is a Class E. Let's go for Rancho Marietta. Half Rancho Marietta is very hazy, and you know it that the minute you take off, you get to 300-400 feet, you're in clear blue skies. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's again, that's what it comes out to your personal minimums, whether you want to try to do it or not. Is it unsafe? No, it all depends on your personal minimums. So 1 mile clear clouds for the Class Gulf is not unsafe for one. And again, like I said, your personal minimums is what you have to go by.
Which is true, because if it's 1 mile clear clouds, you think, oh yeah, I'm legal. And then you get up to controlled airspace and you're not within the, you know, requirements needed to get back down to the next airport, and you're not IFR rated, then you've got a big problem on your hands.
Then you have a problem. That's exactly right. That's where we go back to making sure that you get weather briefing and, you know, figure out what your personal minimums are and if it's legal or not.
Just because you can get out doesn't mean you should, number one, and doesn't mean that you can get back in. And personal minimums obviously being another lesson for another day would be a good one to really dig into, and what that really means. But yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no, that was a good discussion. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
All right. Looks like I went a little out of order. So we're going to go back into 91-129 operations in a Class Delta airspace. So let's see. without reading that giant first paragraph. So essentially, in class Delta, an operator may deviate from any provision of this section under the provisions of an ATC authorization issued by the ATC facility having jurisdiction over the airspace concerned. ATC might authorize a deviation on a continuing basis or for an individual flight as appropriate. Richard, can you think of a time to where class Delta might deviate maybe from something that is, I don't know, otherwise normal for a class Delta? I know for Sacramento Executive, they don't like us overflying at 2,500. They'd rather us talk to NorCal or after a certain height, and it normally is class Delta, but they like us to click over because they say it's NorCal's jurisdiction.
And and that's a lot of people don't understand that. SAC Exec is a good example because what happened is SAC Exec, they have a letter of agreement with NorCal saying, hey, 2,000 feet and above, you guys take over because they want to, how can I say, try to control the airplanes around the area because of SAC International. So it's an agreement between SAC Exec and NorCal. But technically, the class Delta goes up to 2,500 feet. So if you don't want to talk to NorCal, you're 2,100 feet. To be honest with you, you still have to talk to the SAC Exec. They may tell you to go to NorCal. You say, well, okay, see you later and keep on going. And don't call NorCal, but you made the point of talking to SAC Exec first. The only other thing I can think of sometimes is, for example, something that for us it may not apply, going faster than normal. Like I say, class Delta is 200 knots. If ATC tells you you can go faster, then it's okay for you to go faster. They just deviated from the rule, but it's the reg does say as approved by the administrator, so they have the authority to do that.
Okay, no, that's perfect. Just, a speed deviation. So yeah, like ATC said, you can go faster. Good, I like that. You must, so each person operating in an aircraft in class Delta airspace must meet the following two-way radio communication requirements. And that is for arrival and through. So if you are listening in on the radios in a class Delta airspace, you may hear requesting permission to fly through your airspace. So they're probably above, TPA. They're just trying to get from point to point. I did do a little bit of survey, and you do just have to request permission to fly through because you're in their airspace. And then obviously have two-way radio communication before you enter their airspace. And that's essentially what the communication section is saying there. Let's see, going to the next page. From the primary airport or satellite airport, that any operating control tower must establish and maintain two-way radio communications with the control tower and thereafter as instructed by ATC while operating in the class Delta airspace. Or from a satellite airport without an operating control tower must establish and maintain two-way radio communications with ATC facility having jurisdiction over the class Delta airspace as soon as practicable after departing. So let's just say you're in a class Delta and there is a smaller untowered airport within that class Delta. After taking off, you do need to contact that class Delta tower because it is their responsibility to separate traffic within there. So after takeoff, contact the class Delta, and then they will tell you frequency change approved, whether you want to talk to ATC for flight following or not. So you stay with them until you're out of their airspace or until they tell you otherwise. If you have a communication failure within a class Delta, let's see, if you're under IFR, you follow 91-185. If not, if the aircraft radio fails in flight under VFR, the pilot in command may operate that aircraft and land if weather conditions are at or above VFR, basic VFR weather minimums, visual contact with the tower is maintained, and a clearance is received, whether it's a light gun signal. I've even had someone call on their cell phone through their Bose Bluetooth and get clearance to land it was their last resort. So that they did that before entering their airspace and did that. So that is an option if you have cell service. Let's see. Noise abatement. So in class Delta, you can have a noise abatement So where a formal runway use program has been established by the FAA, each pilot of a large or turbine powered airplane assigned a noise abatement runway by ATC must use that runway. However, consistent with the final authority of the pilot in command concerning the safe operation of the aircraft as prescribed in 91.3 Alpha, ATC may assign a different runway if requested by the pilot in the interest of safety. So when you get into the larger aircraft, your runway lengths, the minimum needs to be obviously longer than our single engine 100 horsepower aircraft, whatever you're flying. So in the event, they say, hey, can use this smaller runway per the noise abatement. As pilot in command, you can say, no, I'm requesting, the 7,000 foot long runway. And that's your use of pilot in command authority under 91.3. That is what that is saying. Noise abatements can be found under the airport facility directory, whether you're on ForeFlight. You'll see signs in the airport too if you're taking off. I think there's one at Auburn, like fly heading 230 until 2,000 feet or past the railroad tracks or something to that effect. Let's see. And then takeoff, landing, and taxi clearance. So no person may at any airport with an operating control tower operate an aircraft on a runway or taxiway or take off or land an aircraft unless appropriate clearance is received from ATC. All right, and then we have 91.225, and this is talking about ADS-B out. Let's see. So there was a change after January 1st, 2020, except as prohibited in paragraph I2 of this section, or unless otherwise authorized by ATC, no person may operate an aircraft in the following airspace unless the aircraft is equipped, installed, and meets the requirements in paragraph Bravo of this section. So it states, I put a visual depiction here. I'm a visual person. In class Alpha, you need ADS-B. It is required. You also need to be instrument rated to fly in class Alpha. In class Echo, above 10,000 feet, ADS-B is required. Let's see, class Echo, ADS-B required. Let's see, except as provided in paragraph Echo of this section within 30 nautical miles of an airport listed in Appendix D, Section 1, to this part from the surface upward to 10,000 feet MSL, above the ceiling and within the lateral boundaries of class Bravo or class Charlie airspace area designated for an airport upward to 10,000 feet MSL, except as provided in paragraph Echo of this section, class E airspace or Echo airspace within the 48 contiguous states and District of Columbia and above 10,000 feet MSL, including the airspace at and below 2,000 feet above the surface, and class Echo airspace at and above 3,000 feet MSL over the Gulf of Mexico from the coastline of the United States out to 12 nautical miles. So you see there, class Charlie, ADS-B is required from the surface up to 10,000 feet. So as you know, class Charlie only goes up to 4,000 feet, but you need it from that 4,000 up to 10,000. Class Bravo, that big airspace, from surface up to 10,000. So class Bravo does go from the surface up to 10,000, but you need it within 30 nautical miles within that mode C veil. Anything there to add, Richard?
No.
No. So ADS-B mode C is altitude reporting. So it's reporting your altitude to other aircraft and ATC. Other aircraft, as long as you have ADS-B in, can receive your position and altitude. All right, we're almost done. 91.151, fuel requirements for flight in VFR conditions. So this is stating that no person may begin a flight in an airplane under VFR conditions unless considered wind and forecast weather conditions. There's enough fuel to fly to the first point of intended landing and assuming normal cruising speed. During the day to fly after that for at least 30 minutes, or at night to fly after that for at least 45 minutes. The other one is talking about rotorcraft. So essentially you need 30 minutes of fuel left in your tanks after meeting your intended airport in the event you had to deviate. So I know I've had an instance to where I've had a gear up landing at my intended airport and I have had to divert. So this 30 minutes is bare minimum. I personally like an extra hour in my aircraft, weight and balance permitting. So this again is just the bare minimum. Then you can get into your own
And-
personal minimums.
And Alicia or Richard, the cruising speed or the cruising, yes,
How to
What
calculate
is-
the 30 minutes?
yes.
Okay.
What was that?
Richard knows my
she-
question. I'm trying to explain what my
She wanted
question
to
is.
know,
Richard,
how do you calculate that 30 minutes?
there's
So
a special thing that, yeah.
Yeah, what I do when I give a check ride, I'll ask them, that particular question, what is your, minimum fuel? Is it 30 minutes? I said, okay, so, and I try to put numbers together for them to figure something out. And for example, I'll tell them, let's say you're flying the 150 that burns 5.5 gallons an hour at max cruise power, but it burns 3 gallons at 2000 RPM. So is it okay to figure out the 30 minutes at 2000 RPM? And the answer is no. The rule says at normal cruise speed is that the 30 minutes has to be figured out. So technically, if it's 5.5 gallons at normal cruise speed, 2400 RPM, that's what you have to figure out the 30 minutes by. That way your number is higher, not lower.
Yeah, so when I have my students do a nav log, I don't know how you feel about this, but let's just say the tanks burn 6 gallons an hour. I have them average even more than that because, again, I think that's, perfect pilot technique. And that gives enough room for air.
Oh, that's
depending
great.
on-
That's
That's great.
perfect.
Yeah.
So if the manual says 6, I tell them, put 8 gallons per hour. And then an additional for that 30 minutes.
Mhm.
So that's, that's my rule. So
Safety.
No,
Safety first.
that's the way it should be.
okay. Sounds good. Does anyone have any questions on that? No? Okay. All right. So 91-155 basic VFR weather minimums. So this is the regulation. So for class alpha, you need an instrument rating. This chart for me has always been difficult. I don't know about anyone else. I'm a visual person, so I added this VFR weather weather minimums triangle. If you need help depicting this, I can explain it a little bit more. But essentially, class Bravo, you need 3 statute miles and clear of clouds. Class Charlie, 3 statute miles, 500 feet below, 1,000 feet above, and 2,000 feet horizontally. Class Delta, 3 statute miles, 500 feet below, 1,000 feet above, 2,000 feet horizontally. And then I kind of broke off class Echo. But if you go over to the triangle, class Echo above 10,000, you need 5 statute miles, 1,000 feet above, 1,000 feet below, and 1 mile. And then let's see, class Echo below 10,000, that 3 statute miles, 1,000 above, 2,000 horizontally, and 500 below. Class Golf at nighttime is the same as Charlie, Delta, and Echo. That's why there's an arrow pointing to it. If you see, let's see, and then Golf above 10,000 is that 5 statute miles, 1,000, 1,000, 1 mile. Class Golf during the daytime below 10,000 is 1 statute mile, 1,000, 2,000 horizontally, and 500. And then below 1,200 feet AGL, that 1 mile clear of clouds.
I like the chart. It looks neat.
Yeah, so I used to draw this on the whiteboard when I was a student. I'm a visual, like I said, I'm a visual person. Some people like it, some people don't, but if you do like it, you could just Google search VFR weather minimums triangle, and this will come up pretty easily. Does anyone have any questions about the weather triangle or VFR weather minimums? Does the triangle help anyone? Has anyone seen it before?
No, that's the first time I've seen it, and I like it. It makes it easy.
Yeah, no, it makes it super easy, but I have heard from some of my students that to them it's complicated. So teach their own. I just like to provide for us visual people, helps out. So, and then notice in the triangle, the Bravo under 10,000 has a little like asterisk. That means 3 statute miles. It shares the statute miles, but it's clear of clouds for that section. All right. Looks like I accidentally duplicated the special VFR weather minimums. So we can skip through that. That's what I meant to talk about it. let's see, cruising altitude. So this is the hemispherical rule, 91, 159. So how do we choose our altitude? Let's see. So acceptable holding in a holding pattern of 2 minutes or less, or while turning, each person operating an aircraft under a VFR in level cruising flight more than 3,000 feet above the surface shall maintain the appropriate altitude or flight level prescribed below, unless otherwise authorized by ATC. So when operating below 18,000 feet MSL on a magnetic course of 0 through 179, any odd 1,000-foot MSL altitude plus 500, such as 3,500, 5,500, or 7,500. So if you fly out with me to Folsom Lake, that is a easterly heading within that 0 to 179 degrees, I will commonly tell you to climb to 3.5 or 5.5. Now on the opposite end, on a magnetic course of 180 degrees through 359 degrees, an even 1,000-foot plus 500, such as 4,500, 6,500, or 8,500. When operating above 18,000 feet to maintain the altitude or flight level assigned by ATC. And of course, 3,500, make sure you're clearing obstacles. If you have an obstacle at 3.5, then go fly at 5.5. Anyone have any questions about that one?
And just to make sure everybody caught it, is that number starts 3,000 feet AGL?
Yes. Yeah. So anything below 3,000, you can fly at 2,500 feet as long as you are clear of airspace and obstacles. Right. And this just provides safety between passing aircraft. And then if you know anything about instrument, they're at even numbers. So we'll always pass by either 1,000 to 500 feet between aircraft, as long as they're following the rules.
That's important.
and holding altitude. So, all right. So this goes into airworthiness. So 91-203 states that let's see, without reading this whole chapter or this whole section. So essentially, when you pre-flight the aircraft, there needs to be the airworthiness certificate visible to all persons in the aircraft. And this airworthiness certificate comes with the manufacturer stating that it when it was delivered, it was in an airworthiness state. Now, whose job is it now to keep it airworthy? Does anyone know?
Operator.
So it comes from the operator, right? So whether you are the owner or operator of that aircraft or the flight school, now it is the pilot's responsibility now to make sure you have all of your aviate or aero, so all those inspections. Now it's your job just to make sure that that is complete. If they are not complete, you bring it up to the owner or operator because essentially the airplane is not airworthy. And that is what 91-203 is stating.
Yeah, because some owners don't even fly their airplanes or, flight schools, for example.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
The pilots are in there more than the owners, and the owners are responsible ultimately for making sure everything's good. But if there's something wrong, the flight instructors tell the owners.
Definitely. So the next one is 91-205, and this is all the required equipment that needs to be operating in order for the aircraft to be airworthy for VFR flight. Who has heard of the acronym A Tomato Flames? Anyone?
I have.
From applicants. I hear it all the time.
I hope so. So essentially, without reading, I mean, look how big this is. It takes up three pages of the takes up the whole slide. So A Tomato Flames is an acronym that is super helpful to understand this regulation. Let's see if I can even remember all of them. It's a long list. Anyways, A Tomato Flames is for visual flight rules. That's day. And then the night. So in order to fly at nighttime, there's an acronym called FLAPS. Let's see. I had notes on it today. So 91-205 So minimum equipment required to fly for day VFR. The first A is the altimeter. So you need an altimeter. The next one, T, is your tachometer. O is oil temperature indicator. M stands for manifold pressure gauge, whether you have one or not. A is airspeed indicator. So your airspeed indicator has to be working. You need a temperature gauge for each engine, that is T. The next O is oil pressure gauge. F is fuel quantity gauge for each tank. L is landing gear position light, whether you have retractable gear or not. The next one is A for anti-collision lights. M, magnetic compass. E, ELT, and S, safety belts. So if for some reason your magnetic compass on pre-flight, you show that it has no liquid in it, well, according to 91-205, it's inoperative and no longer airworthy. For nighttime, you need, so the acronym is FLAPS, you need fuses. Whether your aircraft have fuses or circuit breakers, you need a spare set of fuses to fly at nighttime. Landing light, you need a landing light only if the aircraft is for hire. Anti-collision lights is A. P is the position light, so the red or green lights on the wings. And then S is source of power, so such as a battery. Does anyone have any questions about 91-205? All right. Let's see. Um, 91-207, this looks like the ELT reg. So when does your aircraft need a ELT? So it does not need an ELT. So what this regulation does not apply to. So if you're flying a turbo jet powered aircraft before January 1st, 2004, aircraft will engage in scheduled flights by scheduled air carriers. Aircraft while engaged in training operations conducted entirely within a 50 nautical mile radius of an airport from which such local flight operations began. So if we're just going from, McClellan to Folsom Lake and back, every day, technically our aircraft does not need an ELT. Aircraft will engage in flight operations incident to design and testing. New aircraft while engaged in flight operations incident to the manufacture, preparation, and delivery. Aircraft while engaged in flight operations incident to aerial application of chemicals and other substances for agricultural purposes. Aircraft certificated by the administrator for research and developmental purposes. And then an aircraft equipped to carry not more than one person. Let's see. And the list goes on. Now, if your aircraft does have an ELT, if it is required to have an ELT, if it does not, if it's not listed in one of these areas that I just read, there is some required inspections. So every 12 calendar months, it does need to be inspected for proper installation, battery corrosion, operation of controls and crash sensor, and the presence of sufficient signal radiation from its antenna. On top of that, there is a battery date. So the battery does get old. So essentially there is a date listed on the ELT, and that is the 50% of its battery life, and then it needs to be replaced. That's correct, Richard. If I remember right, the battery date is the 50% date, or is it 50% of the date listed on there? Do you know?
I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know. Usually it tells you needs to be replaced by.
Yes.
And whatever that date is, that's the date you go by.
Okay. Yes. So there is a date listed on there. So that is all something you check before flight. Let's see. This just goes more into the ELT. So when the transmitter has been in use for more than one cumulative hour, or when the 50% of their useful life, 50% of their useful life of charge has expired, then it needs to be replaced. So whether 1 hour cumulative use or 50%, and then that inspection every 12 calendar months needs to be done. Aircraft lights, so 91-209, no person may during the period of sunset to sunrise. Let's see, or in Alaska during the period of prominent unlighted objects cannot be seen from a distance of 3 statute miles, or the sun is more than 6 degrees below the horizon. So nighttime, operate an aircraft unless it has lighted position lights. So it needs position lights, so those red or green ones. Park or move an aircraft in or in dangerous proximity to night flight operations area in an airport unless the aircraft is clearly illuminated, has lighted position lights, or is in an area that is marked by obstruction lights. You cannot anchor an aircraft unless the aircraft has lighted anchor lights or is in an area with anchor lights are not required on the vessels. Let's see. You cannot operate an aircraft that is equipped with anti-collision light system unless it has lighted anti-collision lights. However, the anti-collision lights need to be lighted when the pilot in command determines that because of operating conditions, it would be an interest of safety to turn the lights off. So anytime I'm in the run-up area at nighttime with another aircraft, I do turn off the anti-collision lights, so I'm just not blinding them. If anyone's done any nighttime flying, you know that you want to try and stay away from bright white lights to allow your eyes to adjust to the nighttime. So I try to be courteous to other aircraft in the run-up area, and then while I'm holding short, I do turn them back on. Supplemental oxygen, so 91.211, when do you need oxygen? So when you're flying along at cabin pressure altitudes above 12,500 feet MSL up to and including 4,000 feet for 30 minutes or longer, the crew does need oxygen. If the cabin pressure altitude's above 14,000 feet, unless required minimum, flight crew is provided with and uses supplemental oxygen during the entire flight time to those altitudes. So at 14,000 for the entirety of the flight, you need oxygen as a crew member. At cabin pressure altitudes above 15,000 feet MSL, unless each occupant of the aircraft is provided with supplemental oxygen. So essentially they just have to be provided. It doesn't say that they have to use it, but they will probably all be getting loopy.
So if you have somebody who talks too much, don't give him any oxygen.
I actually have heard of a story like that. There was a pilot who took their passengers up pretty high, so then they got tired and didn't talk to him as he flew. 91.213, this goes into inoperative equipment. So if your aircraft has an MEL, minimum equipment list, most of the time this has to be certified by the FAA. Most small aircraft do not have this. We're talking about Part 121, Part 135. Large jet operations have a minimum equipment list. So if you do not have an MEL, we go to the Part VFR day type certificate. So that's within your manual or POH. There is a list of requirements by the manufacturer stating that, hey, we need your attitude indicator working. It says the type of equipment needed to be working in order for it to be airworthy. Then you go to the kinds of operations list to where, again, it's listed. You need that one landing light. So if it's not required by the kinds of operations list within the manual, let's just say, okay, under the 10 things listed on there, I don't see the equipment that's inoperative. Then you go to 91.205. Does 91.205 state that you need an attitude indicator? Well, it doesn't. So as long as you now placard it inoperative, right? So it's inoperative with a sticker on it. And then you go ahead in the maintenance binder, you list your name, you write the description, attitude indicator, inoperative, sign it, date it. Now you're able to fly. Does that make sense? Now your aircraft is airworthy. So under all these steps, you can find out whether or not your aircraft is still airworthy or if you cannot fly it that day. Um, 91.403, we're almost done. I think we have 3 more slides. The owner or operator of an aircraft is primarily responsible for maintaining the aircraft in an airworthy condition, including compliance with Part 39 of this chapter. Let's see, no person may perform maintenance, preventative maintenance, or alterations on an aircraft other than as prescribed in the subpart and other applicable regulations, including Part 43 of this chapter. So if you go to Part 43, it does state, all the things you can do as an owner of the aircraft, whether that's, change a tire, change a light bulb, it will be listed in there of all the things you are able to do as a pilot or operator yourself. If it's not listed in there, take it to a maintenance technician. I always say, don't expect me to change a tire. I could probably figure it out, but I don't want to. I'd rather have someone who is certified to do it. So let's see.
Yeah, and also, if you do any kind of maintenance, don't forget you're required to put it in the logbook, the aircraft logbook, so that way you can keep track of it. So it's not a matter of going to change the tire. It's okay to change the tire, but now you got to make the entry in the logbook and you have to sign it also.
Yes, definitely. Because that, I mean, if someone else is going to go fly the plane, I would like to know that, the tire was just recently changed. Let's see. A person must not alter an aircraft based on a supplemental type certificate unless the owner or operator of the aircraft is the holder of the supplemental type certificate or has written permission from the holder. So 91-405 maintenance required. Let's see. So in Bravo shall ensure that maintenance personnel make appropriate entries in the aircraft maintenance records indicating the aircraft has been approved for return to service. So yeah, make that data entry in the book. And then if you take it to maintenance, make sure they give you the sticker or write in the book. 91-409. Let's see, this is talking about required inspections. So that's that Aviate and Aero that I talked about. An aircraft needs an annual every 12 calendar months. If the aircraft is for hire or flight instruction is being provided in this aircraft, it needs a 100-hour inspection every 100 hours on that tack time. Let's see, I did not reach the other inspections. That ELT inspection is on there that we talked about in the previous section. You do need a transponder, an altimeter. I believe that's VFR only. Every 24 calendar, or not VFR, IFR only, every 12 calendar months. And then, which one am I missing? If you are also under IFR, you need a VOR inspection done every, well, not it's inspection, it's every 30 days, and the pilot can do that. I feel like I'm missing one more. Transponder.
Yes, usually the transponder is done with the pitot-static.
Okay, every 24 calendar months.
Exactly.
All right, so
I wanted to add on 100. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to add for the 100-hour inspection. A trap is you're taking a trip that's going to take you 3 hours to get there and back. There's only 2 hours left before the 100-hour inspection. Well, the idea is you cannot overfly the 100-hour inspection, even though if you're bringing it back home and it goes over the 100-hour inspection. So in other words, you can't overfly it for pleasure. It can only be overflown for maintenance purposes, which means you're taking it somewhere to get it fixed or to get it done, not for pleasure.
Yes, that makes sense. So, and then if you do overflight, let's just say you have to take it to a maintenance facility. I think it's up to 10 hours, and then that is deducted from the next 100-hour. So right. if you get it done at 110 hours, you only have 90 hours until your next inspection. Correct. And then in order to overfly, let's just say an annual, you cannot overfly. You'd have to get a special flight permit from the FSDO. That's, a whole thing, special flight permit. It has to be deemed airworthy enough to get to a maintenance location. So it does have to be inspected by maintenance personnel. And then the minimum crew to fly that plane. So if the aircraft only requires one pilot, only one pilot can go. You can't take your sister, mom, brother, dog, and you're taking it from point A to B for maintenance. I did added the decompression sickness after scuba diving. This is in the FAR AIM. It's a little different. I just think it is something that needs to be talked about. This is the last slide. So you can, if you go scuba diving, this is a recommendation, says the recommended waiting time for going to flight altitudes up or above or up to 8,000 feet, at least 12 hours after diving, which has not required controlled ascents, and at least 24 hours after diving, which required controlled ascents. And that is for, you can actually get, nitrogen sickness
Yeah, called the bends.
The bins, and essentially whether it's you or a passenger can start to boil up. And if you Google pictures, it does not look good. So
You can actually
essentially,
die from it.
yes, you
Mm.
can die. So, don't be afraid to, ask your passengers if you go to the beach and, your friend's saying, oh, I'm going to go scuba diving, ask them, you do need to wait until all that nitrogen gets out of their bloodstream. All right, so that is it for today. Go ahead and see if I can switch my screen. There we go. All right, so that is a list of regulations. It's a lot. I did have my FAR/AIM tabbed out. If you do have the electronic version, you can hit bookmark. All these are really good to know. But yeah, that's it. I thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. Richard, Jamie, do you have anything to say? Thank you guys for helping me and attending.
That was really great, Alicia. A lot of good stuff, a lot of good refresher and stuff that people need to know that sometimes they know on their check ride and then they forget it or whatnot. And some people are still haven't had their check ride, but all good stuff. So yeah, if you guys don't have that book, make sure you get it and start studying and tabbing out, like Alicia said, there's a lot of information in those books. So we all tab out, and highlight, get a highlighter out. Don't be scared to write in that book. And what works for me is a hard copy, like a real copy of the book versus the iPad, and all that digital stuff. It's just nice to have that hard copy. And yeah, so good job. Thank you. And then we'll let you guys know, I guess we'll pick a subject for the next 2 weeks for Alicia to talk about whatever she wants, but so much good stuff in so little time.
Yes. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll see you guys next time.
See you later.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.